In my opinion, the two biggest gaps we have to fill in biomolecular research is one, providing more specific and precise to the individual and their own physiology, and number two, being more holistic with their entire physiology. And what I mean by that second one is I think we've done an actual massive disservice in teaching the world and our students in our curriculum systems-based physiology. So we teach the nervous system, we teach the digestive system, we teach the cardiovascular system as if they're not the same thing. And why that's a problem is in research we have to have high precision, accuracy, and validity. In order to do that, you have to get tremendously good at one particular thing, and that takes a very long time, and it's very challenging and costly. So in order to do that, you tend to focus on one specific area of physiology, and even more focused than that, you tend to get one or two specific variables. And that becomes tremendously problematic because now we don't know how that one variable influences your other physiological systems, and now we can say almost nothing about how that influences you as a human being. And so really changing our approach, or updating our approach rather, to be not only precise to you as a human, but precise to how one part of your physiology influences the other one is absolutely essential for us to actually start solving any of these problems. We're not going to make really many advancements in precision nutrition, precision exercise, precision sleep, any of these things until we can account for how one system changes the other one, because in fact they're not different systems. We tend to call them different systems so it's easier for us to understand and teach, but they're the same thing. Your endocrine system directly regulates your nervous system. Your nervous system regulates your digestive system. Your digestive system regulates your hormone system, and back and forth, right? These are not unique independent wheels. It is one giant wheel. And so it's quite arrogant for us to think we're really going to have precision nutrition or precision exercise or precision medicine unless we can account for how when we change one variable, whether this is a therapeutic medicine, whether this is a different hydration routine, whether this is any psychological intervention or mental health work, and think it's not going to change the rest of the physiology. We have to account for that, and we have to be able to prescribe that to people so we understand what's really going to happen at the total human level. I actually don't think this is a challenge of getting people and scientists to think in this holistic way. It's been my experience that most do. It's not an issue of educating the scientists or convincing them to do things different. It's a function of how we tactically going to do this. It is an issue of how in my lab, as an individual scientist, am I going to do these things? It is cumbersome, it is expensive, I didn't have training like that. There's just no way I can account for that. My studies are now going to take years to analyze. It's practically infeasible. And so I think the challenges that lie ahead are not with convincing folks to do that, or, to be honest, most of the people I talk to, that's actually what they want to do. It's just feasibility. And really, some of the advances in technology are going to break down those areas. The other approach to it is really coming up with things like the Motor Pack grant. And so if you're familiar with that, that is the molecular transducers of physical activity. That's a $170 million government project spread across 10 or 12 laboratories that scale from cell culture work to animal work to humans and all up and down. Everything within that Motor Pack grant has to be given open access. And so all those data are coming together in a central pool. It is the classic NHANES databases that people love to hate. But these are the answers of how we're going to get some of these solutions. It's the WuSci Human Performance Alliance. It's things like that where we can share giant databases and then have huge teams of data analysts that can actually make something out of that. That is really the answer to this problem. In theory, if this is done correctly, it should directly translate into human performance. And you can think about this from two perspectives. One is injury prevention. And so you can look at things like the biomechanical side of it. So are you moving correctly? Is your training load appropriate? And looking into your nutrition and hydration and recovery and your sleep and all that stuff to reduce overuse injury and trauma like that. The second side is what happens if an injury occurs, whether this was acute trauma, big collision, unavoidable, or it was an avoidable mistake like an overtraining or improper movement issue. In those particular cases, now we're talking about regeneration. So whether we're talking about better and high precision nutrition prior to going into surgery, you're going to clearly see better results, a faster recovery if nutrition is dialed in personally prior to going into surgery. So now you're talking about nutrition interventions. There are training interventions that can do the same thing. So better, more effective training prior to a surgery is going to result in better outcomes. This is something I'm fully convinced of despite the real nascence of data at this point. But it makes total sense. Precision sleep, same thing, right? Now all this stuff can go in there. We also have regenerative medicines that are more effective at those individual targets, and whether this is a whole litany of different solutions we could have for connective tissue. All the way down to the other end of the spectrum, which is just basic things like arthritis or connective tissue, degeneration, bone issues, things like that clearly are going to be influenced by an improvement in our understanding of holistic human physiology. The benefit of these types of advancements for elite sports is quite honestly basically the only thing that these entire groups are focused on. This is the target, and it's been the target for a very long time. And so you could really, in one hand, say that all the advancements we've had in sport are because of this track. It's just going to continue there. You could really go to any major sport, whether it's the NBA, the UFC, Major League Baseball, PGA Tour. You're going to see people behind the scenes that are focused almost exclusively on this target. And you're going to see a lot of changes, whether this is alterations in things like training load in the NBA players. It's changes to the schedule, so not playing back-to-back days. At the highest level, it's that. You're going to see changes in things like your practice schedule based on sleep, based on previous days' alterations. You're going to see high-precision nutrition and supplementation based on biomarkers. And right now, that's very rudimentary for most. You're doing 30 or 40. But the ability to do something like 500 plus biomarkers across multiple domains, so saliva, urine, hair, stool, and of course tons of blood, to be able to have a systematic whole physiology precision approach. It's not there in professional sports, to be honest. I'm in those worlds quite a bit, and that's not there. It's fairly rudimentary, but it's going to be there. It's just a matter of cost and accuracy, which is going to happen. So the trickle-down effect it's the same thing with technology and space flight. There's a reason why we invest in things like that, because the technology that was really crafted in getting us to the moon is the same reason why your camera works. It's the same, you can explain why we've got 4K. It's a trickle-down effect, right? The same thing with physiology and recovery happens in performance. This is why people always want to work with me, even though I generally work with professional athletes, is because they want the pro athlete treatment, right? So if I have to have an athlete recover every single week so that they can play 17 to 20 professional NFL games, they want that same recovery so that they can be dominant in the boardroom or in life or whatever they want to be. And so anything that we find there, whether it's from the sleep, recovery, brain optimization, eye movement, vision, anything like that is just going to trickle down into the general population. So the sport people are what are going to drive these innovations, and then the rest of us get to reap the benefits.